I am so
Hello.
excited to have to introduce. Actually, I'm not going to do the introductions because, as you've seen with the past two videos, I'm completely screwing up the names. What started these interviews is from the International Hugging Day, and what I thought it would be such an incredible experience to showcase people around the world who are working in touch. So, Piero, please introduce yourself.
Hello. Hi, Jasmine. Nice to meet you. So I'm Piero Flor, and I'm from Belgium, from a city called Ghent, beautiful town in the north of Belgium. And my business is called True Intimacy. And so I work around touch and intimacy as an intimacy coach, but also as a cuddle workshop facilitator.
True intimacy.
Yes.
I love that. It's so fitting because intimacy is such a difficult thing for some people. As we know, um, not to jump headfirst into it, but sex is usually easier than people allowing themselves to be vulnerable and show and be intimate and share that softer side. So I think that that is so perfect. And the intimacy coaching, I think everybody needs that. What was touch to you growing up? That growing up for me, touch was both beautiful and violent. Our family was very affectionate. We're Mexican, and so there's lots of hugs and kisses, lots of just touching while you're standing there. There's another part of my upbringing that was also a lot of violence. I had to relearn what touch was to me, or what it can be, that you can have positive touch, or you're enjoying the touch you're receiving. And so I had to relearn, but not everybody has gone through that. A lot of people
Mhm.
were raised with really positive touch, and some people were raised without any touch, that the families just weren't touchy-feely. And so I want to ask you, what was your experience around touch growing up?
Hmm. So my experience of touch as a child was relatively normal.
Can I ask you, when you say normal, what's normal? Because normal to you
Normal,
is probably not normal to somebody else.
yeah. So normal would be to ordinary Flemish conditions, I would say. So we were touched as children. There was also intimacy present in the nuclear family, like between my mom and my dad. Um, but in the wider society, like the family or the friends of my parents, there was no exchange of hugs. Like the only way of
Mm.
saying hi was just kissing, or just a hand. Often among men, just a hand, for example. So yeah, as soon as we grew up, touch became yeah, a bit more like a taboo. And so in my teenage years, there was very little touch in the smaller family. Um, so yeah, there was some missing there, and I've started rebelling against that as a teenager, and I started hugging my friends, and I started kissing my male friends, for example, which was also in high school was still, like in my high school, still quite a taboo. Um, so already from quite a young age, I tried to rebel against it, and I tried to hug my parents, and they reluctantly opened up to that. But it stayed within boundaries of like saying hi and goodbye, and not really beyond that. Yeah.
Wow. Now, I know, for instance, with Mexicans, we do a quick kiss on the cheek when we meet someone, and when we shake hands. Um, with Europeans, I've always thought there was a kiss on either side of the cheek, but I don't know if that, I mean, Europe's, it's a lot of culture, a lot of different
uh,
cultures there. So in your experience, wasn't that
yeah.
a normal thing where you do the kiss on each side?
So it's yeah, especially already in Belgium there is many different customs. So there is in some parts of Belgium is only one kiss, and like in the southern part, French speaking part, it's more two kisses also, and some people don't give kisses. So it's so in some families man kiss, and in other families man don't kiss. But on average, like for example, man wouldn't kiss each other. That would be yeah, in most families in Flanders. That's
So then, was this rebellion that you were starting to evoke something that kind of pushed you towards the direction of touch?
not really. I think maybe eventually it did, but I went through a whole personal journey first, and I became quite early on an activist, and was working on a lot of different societal topics like climate justice and racism, migration, anti-war also. Like I became, yeah, when the Iraq war was happening, I became more political. But it was actually when I got involved with educational work, group work, I increasingly did embodied exercises in the groups that I was working with. And increasingly also touch became part of that. And I stumbled upon obstacles there because I like within the framework of social work, of activism, there was always the idea of taking care of the most vulnerable person in the group, and the topic is more important than the methods. So I felt I could not dive deeper into several exercises and methods that included touch because yeah, it would stop for a certain group of people. So that's how it's one of the elements why I changed my career a bit towards more touch, so I could work directly with it without being restrained in that context.
I
But
see.
on top of that, it was also a personal journey, yeah, in my relationship, in my love life, and a personal also like a depression I went through that also turned things upside down and made me look differently at touch and intimacy than before.
You said the depression you went through.
Yeah,
During that
definitely.
time of your life, did you receive touch, or had you kind of pushed and blocked people away from that human connection and intimacy?
Mm. I was increasingly looking for touch, even more than that. Like I was increasingly looking for sex in the relationships that I was seeking, and not really realizing that I was actually seeking love and care and affection and self-love also. And that's how I yeah from let's say being more open, like open to an open relationship or more sexual experiences, I realized that my real search is more, yeah, sensuality rather than sexuality. And so yeah, that's how things evolved a bit, and yeah, uh, here I am.
You know, you really hit
Yeah.
the nail on the head when you say that you thought you were looking for sex or that sexual gratification when really that's not what you were looking for. But in so many cultures, that is what's available if you want intimacy. You look for sex. And what professional cuddlers or platonic touch practitioners offer. I know in those body workers that you get to have that intimacy and you get that touch. And so many people don't realize that's what they're looking for because that, like you said, it's taboo. That is taboo to be intimate with somebody else when they are not your partner, to hold in touch and just do something that I like to do is a 5-minute hug. When clients come in after we do a meditation, we'll stand right over here and we'll just hug
Mhm.
for 4 or 5 minutes. And that's something that people aren't used to doing. Typically, that kind of touch is either a prelude or postlude to sex. And so if you've never understood or taken the shame away from it, then that's all that you're going to know. You're just going to think that sex is the only way to get intimacy, to feel really deeply connected. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, I think you actually formulated that very well, and that's what I saw in my experience in my personal journey, but which I also see in the professional work I do, and especially also in the cuddle workshops I organize. I yeah see that there's always this group of more, especially men. It's mostly men that are seeking yeah, some gratification, maybe not necessarily sex, but they seek some gratification from these workshops. And but soon enough they realize that that's not what it's all about. It's truly about yeah, intimate connecting with the other, but through yourself. And this balance and this awareness of yourself, this consciousness with yourself is truly important in the connection with the other. And that's also often, also in sex, is often a problem, that people are always outward with their energy and not really feeling into themselves. Or what do they need, what do they want, what do they feel in the very right moment in the connection with someone else. So
And that's what you help them do, is sit into and feel into their body, and a way
yeah.
to kind of tap in and figure out, what exactly am I feeling? What exactly do I want or I need?
Yeah, for example, if I see that some men are especially interested in the women in the workshop, then I encourage them to cuddle with other men, and or to cuddle with maybe the women that they don't feel attracted to, or and that brings very beautiful experiences for the man, but for me as well, as a practitioner and as a facilitator, to see what's unfolding, and how just in 2 hours time people come with some kind of an agenda to the workshop, and the workshop like in bliss and a very peaceful mind and state, and very happy. And yeah, so it's very beautiful how people can transform, and just realizing this, what you just formulated about the difference between sex and intimacy. And
Something that I hear often from men, cis men particularly, is that they would love to be a professional cuddler, as long as they don't have to cuddle other men, as long as they just cuddle women. And so I find it interesting that you said, when you see one of your attendees attracted or being pulled, going towards one of the women, that you suggest or encourage them to cuddle, or to have some intimate touch with a man. How do they typically, what comes from that? How do they react to it? How do they walk away from it?
well, it's there's of course every person is different, and but there's a lot of resistance with most men. There's a lot of resistance, and it really takes time for them to sink into that experience, and let go of the agenda. And but it's yeah, it's of course it's years long trauma from childhood. As a man, we have not learned to connect with other men in a healthy, touchy, intimate way. And that's yeah, it's not something you cure from one day to the other. And there's also no point forcing them, of course, to connect with another man if they don't want to, or if they don't feel like it. But it's yeah, I mean, it. What I've also noticed, that it somehow sometimes can go very fast. So because yeah, if you've never had a cuddle of longer than 5 minutes with another man, you just don't know what it is to experience. So when then it finally happens, it's sometimes very beautiful to see what's unfolding. And I always say to heterosexual men, like the key to intimacy with a woman is intimacy with another man. And that doesn't have to be something sexual. It can be something, just for something very beautiful and connective. And yeah.
Right. Your experience, you had mentioned the rebellion and a little bit of the depression. Is that what kind of moved you into this field?
Definitely, I was attracted by, I heard about cuddle workshops, and I was curious about it. I heard about polyamory, about open relationship. I dived into that a bit, and but soon enough, I realized that I could also do something with it professionally, as it also came on a professional level. It came on my path, where I realized, okay, like I want to do more with touch here, but I can't. I'm restrained within the context of my work. So if I want to do it, I have to do it on my own, or find other partners or other organizations who are open to that or willing to do that. But that's of course very niche sector in this moment in Flanders or in Europe, even in the world. I think it's still a very small sector, and there's no or hardly any professional NGOs or something working on the topic of touch. Not yet. I mean, there are a few in Belgium, but it's very limited. So I thought, okay, I have to follow my own path, and I became a cuddle workshop facilitator, and now I'm doing the psychosexual somatic coaching, education, and the work I'm doing now, and I'm also doing cuddle session one-on-one with people. Yeah.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about the psychosomatic sexual coaching.
Well, it changed my life even more. It was already changing as part of my depression, but it has been amazingly insightful, the journey of becoming a coach. And of course, I had to work through my own journey as well. And I've worked with a lot of people already, also as like we'd say test clients in the meanwhile. And yeah, it's a coaching method that involves body oriented working without necessarily diving in the touch. Touch is possible, can be used, but it distinguishes itself a little bit from other somatic coaching methods, in the sense that it does not involve nakedness or genital touch, from the idea that, I mean, those things are not necessarily wrong in itself, but most often they do not necessarily empower the client. The idea is more that the client can experience these things by him or her or themselves, rather than it's done by a practitioner to them.
So then it's self-soothing touch or self-touch that is.
Yeah, it can be self-soothing touch, but it's a lot about how to feel in the body. So connecting the emotions with what's happening in the body, and that's something that we just basically never learned. Definitely not in modern society. So a big part of the work is like, okay, like you've had a certain difficult experience, let's say with your father, for example. And if you think back about that experience, how does that resonate in your body? Where do you feel that? Do you feel, I don't know, let's say a certain tension in the heart area, for example, and playing with that, and like making the connection with the body, because the body, how to say, saves a lot of information from the past, and by working with the body, it's you can transform certain blockages, certain traumas in a very quick and transformative way. And so that's a little bit part of psychosexual somatics. Like mindfulness is also part of it, and another important element is the energy field. And of course, energy can mean anything, but the relational field between the client and the coach, and how that interplays, and how also the coach is feeling into the body, like, okay, like now I feel also this tightness around my chest, like maybe I can check in with the client what's happening there in that person's chest. And so this interrelational field between the client and the coach is also a very important part of the work. So it goes, I see that as really like an advancement of my touch work, as it's like more deepening the work and going more, how to say, subtle, and doesn't see touch as the holy grail, but sees touch as a very important element of the human being and human existence. But it can also be used in very negative and self-destructive ways, and it's very important to make sure that both as a client and as a coach you stay ethical and how would you say, morally correct about it, because
Right.
yeah, and I think it's a danger, because a lot of touch therapists and a lot of coaches, a lot of psychologists, a lot of therapists, um, project things on their clients, and when you work with touch, this can be even become more dangerous when it's projected in the wrong way. So
Absolutely. Yeah. As a
mm,
platonic touch practitioner, I am perpetually checking myself for if what I'm doing is ethical. Where is this coming from? And you've talked about the exchange of energy, and that is absolutely there. I'd like to share a story with you. When I first started, so I've been doing this since 2016. And when I first started doing this, I didn't have any kind of formal training. And what I found is I was seeing a lot of clients who, and I don't know if this is from the fact that I'm in the DC metropolitan area, but they had trauma and PTSD, and they would come into my office sharing some really significant, sharing stories, feeling safe enough to be vulnerable and talk about these things that they've never told anybody about, or they could never tell their therapist about, and they'd share them with me. Well, that transfer of energy, I would start internalizing some of those negative thoughts, and I would take them home with me. And I could
mhm.
feel myself being exhausted after just one or two sessions. And I had a friend who's a fellow life coach, and she asked me, Jasmine, how are you protecting yourself? And I said, what do you
Mhm.
mean? I have a receptionist out front that if they'll hear anything that goes on. She's like, no, Jasmine, how are you protecting your energy? And I said, oh, what do you mean? And she's like, like, hello. So she suggested, just try some different things and see what works. And so I wasn't really sure what I was doing. I tried singing, I tried dancing before sessions, and what I found helped me the most, and what I have implemented into my practice today, is a 5 to 8 minute body scan meditation for both
Okay.
myself and the client. And that has done wonders. One, it relaxes them and themselves, and also it grounds me, and I do feel protected. I'm present and mindful, as you mentioned, in the moment. And that's how I protect myself in those from that
Mhm.
energy exchange.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, it's important as a practitioner to build resources for yourself. All kinds of resources, mental resources, but also physical resources, and the body scan, of course, can definitely help with that. But I also believe that on top of that, it's important to be aware of your own traumas and your own processes that are going on in your own relational field with your partner, with your parents, with your children, with your loved ones, with your friends, and this awareness is very much key in working with others, um, because
Absolutely.
part of these struggles that you have with your loved ones can play out in the room with your clients.
Oh, sure. They can
Yeah.
impact what's going
Yeah.
on. All right. Somebody had asked once, and one of I also do NLP, neuro linguistic programming training, coaching, and when I was doing the training for that, they said, be aware of who you can and who you can't help. Be aware of any biases you may have going into a session. And I think that plays a lot there. If you, say, had a parent who was a narcissist or an alcoholic, then you recognize you're coming with a lot of baggage that, if you haven't processed it and worked with it, it's
Yeah.
going to very much show up in session. And the same thing if you had a spouse who was addicted to porn or any kind of addiction,
Mhm.
again, and your client starts talking about it, that's those feelings, if they haven't been processed, are going to come up, and it will impact, it will reflect in the way
Definitely.
that you hold your session.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. It's so important to be aware of what your triggers are, and
Mm,
to be able to say no if you feel like, okay, this client, this is not for me, this is not what I can do in this moment of my life, then you know, say this to the client that it's not for now, and move on. You know, it's
Right.
very important to set that boundary, I think. You know.
Oh, absolutely. I think a lot of people have a hard time when they're coming from a scarcity mindset and they think, I have to take this client. I've got to make some money. I've got to pay bills. And unfortunately, that leads to seeing the
Yeah.
wrong client and not being able to help them, and maybe even causing more damage to yourself uh, than anything else, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, and I think along with that, it's important that you also charge the right amount of money. You know, it's you can try to go as low as possible in favor of the client, which of course is beautiful in terms of a social mindset. Like, okay, this kind of work should be accessible
Like a sliding
to
scale.
yeah. A sliding scale is for example an option to deal with that, but there's no point that as a therapist or psychologist you work your ass off from morning to evening, because that's just um, very very challenging,
Mm,
because you work with people's stories, and so it's good to take that time, that self-care time as
right.
well. And then of course, if you charge higher, it's also more easy maybe to not always have to talk from a place of scarcity or work from
Mm,
a place of scarcity.
right, right. And again, that's knowing your boundaries and
Yeah.
being really clear on them. Um, Unfortunately, they don't teach boundaries in high school health, high school health class.
And
Uh,
yeah, neither in primary school.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it would be helpful for people to learn. But that
Yeah,
is part of
definitely.
what we do. It's part of
Yeah.
what you
Yeah.
provide and what you mirror and what you're teaching and helping people to understand is their boundaries, is getting to know themselves. So I know Madeline said that Brussels or Belgium is on their second uh, social distancing or lockdown or shutdown. Um, and she has just had to
Yeah.
kind of adjust her business. And so I wanted to ask you, how have you adjusted your business from seeing clients now that this is not allowed?
Yeah, well, good question. Well, in my specific case, I'm a bit in a transition, because I really want to focus a little bit more on the one-on-one coaching with psychosexual somatics. So I've really also taken this time to slow down a bit and focus on my work and the education around that, and like setting up, like let's say altering my business and bringing it to another level, let's say a higher level or the next level. So I've taken my time off, but on top of that, I've done some cuddle workshops online. So that was quite exciting. So yeah, people, yeah, energetically kind of letting people cuddle with each other, connect with each other, reach out to each other, yeah, from a distance. And wonderfully, it somehow works.
Mm,
People like imagine that they cuddle with the person in front of them, and they can, yeah, kind of connect to it with that. And then on top of that, I did some, yeah, mental health support kind of like weekly events where there was kind of a sharing moment and embodiment moment. It was a mixture of meditation, embodiment, sharing circle, support circle. Um, I did that like every week, but it was, people seem to be a bit tired also of
mm.
online.
Yeah,
So it
yeah,
was not
they are.
always easy to find audience, and I also realized it was partly different audience from my cuddle workshops, because I feel like a big part of the people who come to my cuddle workshops, for them, like the online thing is like is too much out of the comfort zone, or it doesn't feel right for them. So um, and in between the two lockdowns, I've also held a few cuddle workshops in which I worked in small bubbles. So I let people come, I invited them to come as a bubble, and if they didn't have a bubble, I let them form a bubble with 2 or up to 3 people. And so there was a lot of let's say, interconnective exercises, but without touch. And then the last part of the workshop included touch, which was only in the bubble. And that's how I kind of handled a little bit but I could only do it for I think 2 or 3 workshops, and then again a new lockdown was announced, so I had to go online again.
So let me ask you, these workshops that you did where people were not actually touching, but you were doing something around connection. Can you give me an example of what that was, what you presented or what they did?
Well, classic one, first of all, like eye gazing. There's a lot of eye gazing, of course.
Love eye gazing.
Yeah, I let them also move through. I made sure I had a big enough room. I let them move through the room and let them also, yeah, express emotions towards each other from a distance. Um, I let them, for example, do, how would you say, moving mirroring exercises.
Oh,
So
sure.
where one makes some movements and the other follows, which is can also be a very beautiful and intimate encounter. I included more words because in my color workshops, there is hardly any speaking. So I created more space to share how people feel, what their needs are, what they are longing for. So to
Wow.
express that also without, okay, it's one thing to express what you're longing for, and it's already bringing some satisfaction because by expressing it, there comes imagination, there comes some kind of a connected feeling with the other person without actually doing or bringing it into action. So yeah, a lot of different ways I've played with it in the workshops.
That's amazing. I'm sure people needed that so badly. I know people need that so badly. So right now you're just doing online video coaching. Is that right?
No, because in Belgium, under the lockdown, they allowed coaches, therapists, and psychologists, and all healthcare professionals. They also allowed them to see clients one-on-one, of course, without touch. So for coaching, one-on-one coaching, PST, psychosexual somatics coaching, I host people. And yeah, for cuddle sessions, of course, that's not applicable at the moment,
Oh, how
unfortunately.
wonderful. So then people still can come into your space and you can create the container for them to have
Yeah,
this experience. Oh, that's
yeah, yeah,
wonderful. That's
yeah. But I
wonderful.
did some parts online as well because in the
Mm.
beginning, lockdown was more strict, and yeah, for coaches, it wasn't clear whether we could see people or not, and so yeah.
Mm.
And I
Well,
think it's also valuable online. I find that it has also benefits when it comes to personal space and boundaries. And safety. Yeah, both as well for the coach as for the client. It can feel more safe to work on a distance rather than coming in someone's space. So, not that I welcome COVID-19, and but still, it also brings us a new yeah era, let's say, where online
Mm.
work will become more important, and it does have some benefits, I think, and the combination can be a beautiful way of working where you do partly things online and partly things in real. And
Mm, yeah, I have clients that I was able to switch over in March from in-person sessions, which is when we shut down, to virtual sessions. And so it
okay,
was primarily holding space
okay, yeah,
over Zoom, where so much was changing and happening that they just needed to talk about it to somebody who could listen, not judge,
yeah.
not give them advice, unsolicited advice. And
Mhm.
so that has always been really helpful. And I think you're right. I think there is going to be this shift where virtual interaction is going to play a larger role in our day-to-day life because people still need it. Going back to what you said about touch not being the holy grail, I said this before in another video, but I really see it as the key that unlocks that or that access to vulnerability where
Mhm.
people can let down their guard and show a little bit of themselves, that intimacy. And I think if you develop a trusting relationship with a client or somebody, as a practitioner or coach, then virtually you can still get that connection, that human connection, without needing
Yeah.
that touch to unlock it.
Yeah, definitely. The power of touch is yeah, it's incredible. It's
It really
there's no
is.
words for it, but it's also dangerous. And I think, yeah, we have always have to be watchful, because people who have been traumatized or have had negative experience with touch, yeah, we need to create space and yeah, space and time also. For a lot of people, it just requires time to grow into that, and others, I believe, that need to maybe touch less and become more aware of themselves first, and in order to pursue more touch.
Right,
Mm.
right. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to share? Any seminal moments that might have happened or that you experienced?
Oh, that's like a question out of the blue. But
Oh.
what I wanted to share from the beginning is that I love your shirts.
It
Yeah,
says, show more love. I think we could all
yeah,
use a little bit.
definitely. Yeah,
Thank
beautiful.
you. If people watching, if they want to get in contact with you, how would they do that?
Well, that's a difficult one, because yeah, my native language is Dutch, of course, but it's I mean, my working name is Piero Flor, Flor. So that's maybe the easiest way to find me on Facebook or through Google, and then you'll land on my website or my Facebook. But my website is under construction, and the first one is going to be in Dutch, and there will come an English one, which will be www.trueintimacy.be. So you can already access it, but there's like a landing page, and from there you can reach out to me on social media as well.
Well, Pierre, thank you
Yeah.
so much for taking the time today and doing this video with me and sharing so much. I hope that we can connect again later on and
Yes, would be
after the
lovely.
shutdown and see what's going on with you and catch up.
Yeah, you're welcome. I really enjoyed that conversation.